Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, GordoGambles, and welcome back to another full card NASCAR breakdown. This is a fun one. We got ourselves a nice little race here at Bristol, the Bass Pro Shops night race. And man, I'm on cloud nine right now. I was actually really looking forward to doing this video on Thursday because man, if you guys tuned in last week, you made bank with us, and it was a first time experience for me. First time I actually placed a wager on NASCAR at all, because again, the brains of this operation is Ryan. We all know that. And every bet he gave out on the show hit. Every single one, from a 2,000 winner all the way plus 2,000 winner all the way to these minus 110 props. Everything hit, and I am ecstatic over it. I'm so ready to do it again. I'm so ready to hear what he has to say because I'll be writing this all down. I'll be taking notes. I'm just a super happy guy. I owe Ryan a beer, that's for sure. And with further, let's get him in here. The man of the hour, Ryan Larkin. How are we doing, my friend? How are you feeling after an amazing week last week?
I'm feeling great. Obviously can't do much better than we did last week. So anytime you can put word to mouth and have it actually come true is really cool. Especially when people are putting their money on it, right? When people are trusting you and going with what you say and they hit and they can pad that bankroll. That's the goal. So was really happy that we had a good first week.
Yeah, for sure, man. Literally, you could not ask for anything better. Every single thing you said hit. And it's a spot where I've played NASCAR DFS. I have tried to follow you in terms of what you're saying and try to pick up some things from you. Haven't had the best success, but we all know you're the brains of the operation. But just to prove to you, I once upon a time liked me some NASCAR. Here's a Jeff Gordon hat. Same name as me, same number, just to prove I got some history in the game. But no, it was a spot where I listened to you. I tried my best to do my research, but at the end of the day, you are the brains, and literally nothing could have gone better. So I appreciate you. I owe you a drink. If you're ever in the igloos up north, you know where to find me. But no, I appreciate it, and I say there's no better way than to try to do that all over again. How are you feeling about the slate as a whole?
Not the best. So it's one of the weird things about NASCAR is on a week-to-week basis, things change a lot. There we go. Welcome to the NASCAR world. So, NASCAR has a plethora of track types and styles of races, and that creates a lot of variance just in the type of racing we'll see, right? This week at Bristol's a half-mile short track. It's extremely variance ridden. Like, there are so many things that can happen here, from getting a flat tire and losing 3 laps simply because of something, simple and stupid happening. Or you can get into a big wreck where 4 or 5 cars pile up and just wipe out a bunch of good cars. We've seen lap cars take out leaders. We've seen a lot of crazy things happen here. So that really shakes things up. And then Bristol's a track that has changed a lot. For the longest time, for 15, 20 years, it was producing some of the best racing, but it was single grooved right at the bottom. They came in and redid the track completely, and then the guys started running the top, and you saw a completely different style of racing as a result of that. And then the last couple of years, they've been putting a traction compound on the bottom groove, and the drivers have really been attacking that groove a lot more recently, to where the top wasn't as important. So it's gone through a lot of changes, and then now we have a brand new car who's never seen this track. Or that's never seen this track. I don't think a car is an actual animate object, but but it's never been on this track, and there's no comparables. There's no track that's like Bristol that we can sit there and say, well, the car did this here, so we think it'll do that here. It's kind of a big question mark and a big unknown what we're going to see from the teams and the drivers this week. So we're pretty much going to try to lean on trusting driver abilities and track records throughout their whole careers to put our best foot forward, because there is a lot of unknowns and uncertainty.
For sure. Well, let's tackle those unknowns. Let's pull up the odds right here. Once again, we're going to be using DraftKings Sportsbook because they have the most odds. If you guys, you know what, I don't even have a promo code for DraftKings, so never mind. I got promo codes for other books, but we're going to stick with DraftKings today. This is a spot where we have a bunch of lines out here. A lot of ways for us to target this. And I say we do the same thing as last week. We have the favorite here, which is Denny Hamlin. Let's go over that same order. Denny Hamlin is the favorite to win this track at plus 650. Last week, you saw value in the favorite. Do you see value in the favorite this week at all?
Not as much. So, last week he was plus 550 as the favorite, and he finished second to Bubba Wallace. He was right there. He was the best car probably at the end. And that made a lot of sense for the track type and the situation, and the fact that there is less variance, or theoretically going to be less variance at Kansas than at this track. At plus 650, anytime you get plus 650 on a favorite, it feels really good. Obviously, because it's a big number, but it's still a driver that I would say is one of 12 to 15 guys that can win this race. I feel like this race is a more wide open type situation. So I'm not overly thrilled with putting money on those odds, if that makes sense, even though plus 650 seems good. And he is probably in my top 5. It's far less of a sure feel for me, if that makes sense.
That 100% makes sense. And last year we had ourselves Kyle Larson win this race. And I'm going to ask you the same question I did last week. Does any repeat performance mean anything here? Because he is sitting at 750. Is there any value in that at all?
So, yes, this is a good example of trusting a driver's track history. Now, Kyle Larson was one of those drivers that really thrived when they're running the top here, when things widened out and they had a top groove and he would just ride he was the best at getting up close to the wall and maximizing pace, right? Well, last year was all about riding the bottom for the most part, and he won that race. He's been good pretty much any car he's been in at Bristol. He's been a race-winning contender, and that should continue this week as well. I think the biggest question mark that we are going to have is, will it be a Joe Gibbs day where the Gibbs cars have the slight advantage, or the Toyotas like we saw last week, or will the Hendrick cars, who have looked better on short tracks this year, will they have an advantage? And if that's the case, then I think Larson should probably be the favorite to win. Chase Elliott right there at 750 as well. Same odds for him. That makes a lot of sense. Chase has really, really good track history here as well. But Larson, to me, because he struggles so much, he's not the favorite. But if he's had good results the past 3 months, he would be the favorite heading into this race. So, yes, Larson's a really good play, and I do think his track history can, give you some correlation to what we will see. It's just hard to say because we don't really know yet without seeing cars on the track.
For sure. All right. Happy to hear that. But you know what? I'm not wasting any time. I'm jumping right into it. The question we all have for you is, you were able to point out a plus 2,000 guy you thought had a better chance to win. And guess what? He won. We won together. Extra money in our pockets for those listening. Do you have anything like that this week? Anybody you think whose odds are should be better than they are, who are sitting a nice plus money number? Or is it one where the favorite should likely dominate this race?
So historically, the guys that are favorites here, pretty much all the way to, Kevin Harvick's in that group that still got a higher number than I would like. I would say they did a really good job, because even the drivers that you would say are offering good numbers, like Joey Logano at plus 1,500, Ryan Blaney, I believe, plus 1,500. They have a group of guys that are plus 15. Those are all the guys that I would say are secondary threats, but could all theoretically win. Plus 1,500 is not a huge number compared to like what we saw last week or what we've seen in other weeks with Eric Jones winning at like 50-1 or things like that. I don't feel like we have a whole lot of long shot contenders. If I was going to pick one, Alex Bowman, I'm not sure if he's plus 3,000 or plus 3,500, but Alex Bowman's going to probably be the one that stands out. Finished 5th here last year, was 5th at Dover earlier this year, which is, I don't love comparing Dover to Bristol, but it's the only concrete track with high banking, which Bristol is a very similar thing. So Dover's a 1 mile track, Bristol's a half-mile track, but both on concrete, both kind of run the same in terms of some situation, in terms of racing overall, I guess you can say. But there's a big difference between a mile track and a half mile. And there are some differences, but Alex Bowman also won at Dover in 2020. I believe it might have been 2021. It all blurs together at this point, but he hasn't won at Dover. He was 5th earlier this year and was contending for the win. I believe he got caught out by a untimely caution, and still finished 5th, and then finished 5th in this race last year. So I think for the odds and what we've seen speed wise, if Hendrick are the cars to beat, and Larson and Elliott, who would be the favorites, stumble, then Alex Bowman could be right there contending for the win at a really, really good number. Unlike Bubba Wallace, like for me, Bubba Wallace last week was like, he was my pick to win regardless of an odd. Like I thought they had the ability to win that race straight out. Bowman's probably the 10th guy in line that I would pick to win this race, but it's still a really, really good number. So I feel like that's a good spot that you can play a small amount, and if it hits, you get a big, a big score. And then as far as like a regular bet, I really do like Kyle Busch to win. That's going to be my pick to win at plus 800. So you're still getting the fourth, highest odds or whatever there. But Kyle Busch he's won here 25% of the time he's racing the Cup Series, and he's done that against several generations of cars. Won the first ever COT race, which 2005, 6, we had a change of cars, and he won the first ever race here, and then got out and said the car's a piece of crap, and he hated it. But he's good with any type of car here, and he should be a big threat to win. So I'm gonna pick Kyle Busch as my outright. But man, literally anybody in that list is tough.
Hey, for sure. I'm happy to hear you say that. I know B-Man was saying he's able to snag someone at plus 1100.
Yeah, plus 11.
Fun there.
That's a good number. Plus 1100 would be perfect.
Yeah, and it's a spot where I like the fact you're able to shout out those plus 3000s. I'm a greedy little bastard who loves to look at those big plus money numbers, so I do like that. I think that it's a spot where I agree. I think that from the limited amount of research I did, yes, sorry, man, I had to make sure I knew who it was. I didn't want to speak at a turn. From the limited research I did, it looks like it reminds me of betting golf, right? You have the ability to grab those guys who are the rightful favorites, but someone down low is always expected to go up and get there. So I do like myself some Kyle Busch this weekend. I think maybe that's where I'll tell you with that one. Maybe you help me with Bubba Wallace. Maybe Busch is the guy to go this weekend. Phil saying he likes the live betting market. Have you ever actually? You can't even do that. How do you see the live betting market go along this week?
Yeah, so especially at a track like Bristol where things can kind of change really quickly. It really depends on how quickly the books are adjusting mid-race. We'll see it a lot, and I love hitting it in Xfinity races because they really screw up in those because they're just not paying attention as much. But you get a guy like Kyle Busch, maybe he has an issue early, goes a lap down, or something, and all of a sudden his odds will shift to plus 2,000 or 3,000 or something. His odds will completely drop, and he's only a lap down at his best track, and there's 400 laps left to go, right? This race is so long in terms of laps. There's so many cautions, and the opportunity for him to get back on the lead lap and then possibly go and win are still there. It's still all the same if his car's fast. So you can get really good odds on drivers when things shake up. A bad pit stop, they have to drop to the back, and they'll shift their odds. And even if it's plus 1,500 instead of plus 800, you can get really good odds on a potential race winner just because they drop to the back mid-race.
Awesome. I'll have to look into that for sure. Let's move on to the part of the show we did not touch on last week, and I know you had your notes for it, but we skipped over it. This week, we're going to talk about it just briefly. We're talking about the top 10 market, and I don't even think it was available by the time we did our video last week, so I'm excited to look at the stuff. Is there anywhere you see value this week? I know you have a guy in Alex Bowman you talked about who is plus money to hit the top 10. Is there anything maybe even lower that you like that has better odds than the line does entail?
So Bowman's definitely on my list. I wrote down two names. So I wrote down Bowman plus 100. With top 10s, I'm really hunting plus money or someone that's in that minus 120 range. I'm not trying to play a minus 300 pick to finish top 10. I'm not trying to bet 300 to win 100 or what. That just doesn't make sense to me on a top 10 bet. And they've done a really good job of making these lines minus 200, minus 300. So for me, it's hard to go and chase drivers. But Bowman plus 100, I gave you my reasoning with him winning, but that reasoning fits a lot better with this top 10 bet, right? So 5th in this race last year, 5th at Dover earlier this year, good on the concrete, it seems like. And I just need a top 10. That's all I need for this bet the cash. And that's a driver that can consistently get top 10s on this style of track. And if Hendrick are what I think they will be, which will be the best cars on track come Saturday, I think Bowman top 10 is very, very likely. And then a surprise one, not necessarily a surprise one, but someone I just trust out of safety aspect, if he can manage the race and be there at the end, is plus 180 Eric Almirola. I don't have a ton of obvious, he's done this 20 times at this track. It's nothing like that. But Eric Almirola is very consistent. He's a very good short track racer. And in this equipment, I think he has the ability to finish top 10. He was 5th here in 2020, and then has some other poor poor finishes, I guess would be the best way to put it. But you can get caught up in accidents so quickly here that it makes you look like you're bad at this track when you're not. He had an accident in the spring 2020 race. He had an accident in the spring 2019 race. He had an accident in 2017 as well. In between there was a 6th place finish, a 5th place finish. We know the Stewart-Haas cars can be good here. Kevin Harvick's won here and I think he finished 2nd last year. So Stewart-Haas has decent ability around Bristol. If they can translate that into speed this week, I think he's a guy that can finish top 10. Typically on short tracks, he's a guy that stands out. And the fact that it's plus 180s, to me, a really, really good number. And then outside of that, there's just a bunch of dart throws. There's nobody I feel great about. The only other one I would shout out would be Brad Keselowski there. Keselowski's plus 350. And that's a driver with 3 wins on this track. He was driving for Penske. Penske had one of the best track records from 2012 until the last couple of years. Over a decade, they won a bunch of races. They looked great. They had some of the best speed, and he was able to capitalize. But if you look at his whole career on concrete tracks, he's great. His first 3 Xfinity wins came on concrete tracks, 3 different concrete tracks. He won at Nashville, Bristol, and then Dover. He carried that same type of performance on this type of track into the Cup Series. And while their speed at Roush has been great, this is a track where Brad can over-deliver what the car's performance is. And for him to finish 9th or 10th or 8th in this race is fully logical. I would say that he should be a more of like a plus 150, 200 driver, and we're getting him at plus 350. So that's probably one of my best odds. Now, he may just run 14th or something. And we'll get to that with DFS because he's one of my favorite DFS plays. But I think the top 10 upside is legit for him.
Perfect. All right. Love to hear that. We got a question here for you. And I think that's great because you guys have the opportunity to talk to a great NASCAR mind here in Ryan. And so throw your question in the chat. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. B-Man saying, what's your thought on Jones' top 10? He is plus 180, outright plus 5,000. Great success there. 2 Xfinity wins, 5 top 10s last 9 Cup starts. What are your thoughts on Jones?
So, yeah, Eric Jones is a really good play too. I definitely have him as one of my guys in DFS that I'm interested in. Outright to win, no. If you look at past winners here, it's the elite of the elite. It's not, you don't get underdogs winning at Bristol. That does not happen. And basically that means all your top teams, your top drivers, the Kyle Busches, the Kevin Harvicks, the Hendrick cars, they're the ones winning. But Eric Jones has a really good track record here, and he's a really good driver. I've been a huge fan of Eric Jones since he started driving. Like, I think he was better than Christopher Bell. I thought that move was a step to the side. I think Eric Jones is every bit as good. So I'm a big fan of his. Anyways, let's get back to the top 10 deal. The thing that holds me back on Eric Jones is his results with Joe Gibbs are skewed because Joe Gibbs Racing are the pinnacle of racing. And for the last, 8 years on short tracks, they've been dominant to the point where everyone's statistics look a lot better than they should, right? So you got a guy that he puts up a bunch of top 5s because he's in the elite equipment, but then when he steps back, can he deliver? The good news for Eric Jones is that he does. He typically still runs well. He finished 8th here last year, which is a big positive. I just don't know. I don't remember the exact way that race played out in the middle part of the race. So I don't know if that top 10 was a legit speed situation or if things broke his way, right? But yeah, Eric Jones is a good top 10 play at plus 180 when he's already delivered a top 10 in Richard Petty Motorsports equipment, or now it's Petty GMS equipment. It's just, it's I don't know. I'm torn between Eric Jones, and I've been torn between him a lot in situations because is his Gibbs statistics really something you can go off of? Like, Joe Gibbs racing in the Xfinity Series won with Ryan Preece. They won with every driver who's ever driven for them at Bristol. It's just a product of the equipment being better than everyone else. So I try to not let that cloud my thought process. But plus 180 for a guy that I think's a realistic shot at a top 10, yes, that's a good play. That was a
Perfect.
long, that was a winded answer to get back to saying, yes, that's a good play.
Hey, more information, the better. All right. Thank you for taking the time to answer that. Let's move on. We talked about top 10. Let's talk about some head-to-heads here. We got a few matchups here. Before we do the matchup, actually, let's do group winners. You killed that last week. Any other group winners? We got 4 of them right here. Does anything stick out to you?
No, not anything I really want to put a lot of money on. And this kind of goes down to the fact that I think there's 12 guys that can be really, really good. Group C is a great example of this. Blaney's looked great here. Logano's looked great here. Byron's been solid. And then Truex has the ability, but it's sketchy. I don't really want to put plus 275 on Truex when that group's so tight. The top group is a bunch of elite guys. I just don't know where really, other than Ross Chastain at plus 400, simply because he's plus 400 in Group B. I don't think there's anything in the groups I'm loving, just because I think they're all about right. And I don't think you're getting a good enough number on anybody to make you be like, yeah, I want Alex Bowman at plus whatever 200 or whatever he is in that Group D. I don't love any of them. In this race, I think you can take shots on guys, but that's what it is. It's shots. And I would rather play them for top 10 or something at similar odds. That's a little bit safer than try to have them beat 3 elite drivers.
All right. Well, let's not force anything. Let's if nothing really sticks out, let's go over to the matchup side of things. And are there anything else that's a bit more attractive to you here than the group winner side?
Yeah. So I got 2 that I wrote down. First one's Ross Chastain plus 105 versus Tyler Reddick. I love plus money. I think it's a situation where anytime you get plus money is good. Ross Chastain's got good track history here, and most of it's in the Truck Series or in the Xfinity Series. It's not necessarily in the Cup Series because he was running in backmarker equipment. But when he was in decent equipment in the Xfinity Series, he finished second here. You look at Bristol and Dover as potential comparisons. Dover, he finished third and second as well. And that was in a car that wasn't, the caliber of race winning. He was willing those cars to the front. I just feel like he's a guy that can finish top 5 if he has a great race. He was great at Dover earlier this year. So if that does translate, it should be a really good show. And then Tyler Reddick doesn't have the best track record here overall at Bristol. He's not someone that stands out for me as a driver to be good here. He just doesn't have the results. And I like kind of flipping those odds. I feel like those odds should be flipped. And even though Reddick does have that 1 4th place finish, he strikes me more of like a 12th to 15th place guy. But he's also a great driver. So either one of these guys can win this battle. I just like the plus money on Ross Chastain.
Anything to add on what B-Man said there?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Chastain has about 10 people that hate him. So
really?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. I actually made a joke of a chart, like a spreadsheet chart or whatever, with the ratings of how much people hate him. But literally, there's 10 people that owe him some payback. So it is possible that Chastain gets shipped into the wall. But I'm not playing for that. I think a lot of guys, they have a lot to play for right now. There's not a lot of people that want to ruin their seasons trying to mess with Ross Chastain. They don't need to. He's kind of screwing himself lately. So I think they're just kind of be on their P's and Q's. But man, if Austin Dillon's right behind Ross Chastain and he's still mad at him for the 2 times he's wrecked him this year, there's a chance he just sends him into the wall. So something to keep up with for sure.
All right. You said you had 2 matchups you liked. What's the second one you got there?
So the other one is one that I'm kind of confused on. Not super confused, but we get Bubba Wallace plus 205 versus Bell. There is so much love on Christopher Bell this week, and I'm not really sure why. I'm not picking up what everyone else is feeling. So he finished 9th in his first start here, was 28th and then 29th, and I'm assuming both of those are incident related. He was running top 10 at segments of those races, but he doesn't have this outstanding track history here to say, oh man, he's a top player or someone that should have a huge advantage, where at least Bubba Wallace has these races where, he was running top 5 and led a couple laps or showed some things here at Bristol in the Cup Series that makes you think that he can contend. And Bubba Wallace is a driver that outside of one wreck has finished basically top 20 every single time. He has a 10th, a 14th, a 16th, and that's all in lesser equipment, basically mid-tier or lower tier equipment at Richard Petty Motorsports at the time. And then he was 16th here last year. Not phenomenal, but solid. I think he's a guy that can run top 10, especially with the confidence that he has right now. Maybe even top 5. And the way they set up cars now, these two guys are going to have the same setup, or basically the same setup, depending on their feel and want from the car. Speed-wise, they're going to be about the same. It really comes down to the driver at that point. And I just don't think at this moment in time, Christopher Bell is just light years better than Bubba Wallace for a plus, for this number to be plus 205. I'm not just going back to the well with Bubba Wallace for the sake of it. I truly believe this number makes no sense. If you look at every other matchup, what's the biggest line you got, like plus 125 or something? And we're sitting here at a driver who's coming off a win, who obviously has good ability, who's good at this track, and he's sitting at plus 205. That number just makes no sense to me. So I want to get a little coverage on it, because if he does win, and simply because Christopher Bell's raced here 3 times and he's had 2 bad races because of most likely wrecks, right? So a 66% chance that he has wrecked so far. There's probably a 30 or 40% realistic chance that he wrecks in this race or has an issue, a flat tire, anything that basically takes him out of a good finish. And when you have a rate that's that high and you're getting plus money like this, I think you have to attack it.
All right, I love me some plus money, so that's definitely a way to go. And I think I owe Bubba Wallace some thank you for the cheddar last week, so maybe it's a good way to back him there as well. All right, we only got a couple more markets to cover left from the sports betting side of things before we get over to the DraftKings plays. We talked about matchup, talked about group winner. Last but not least are those the special ones, the winning race manufacturers, the top Ford, top Toyota. Does anything stick out to you from this side of things, or do you think it's there are better ways to target this slate?
I did not do my job this week. I did not look at those. Let me peruse them real quick. I think Chevy and Toyota being the favorites there makes a lot of sense. I don't have a lean one way or the other. I think there's about 4 guys from each manufacturer that should be in that contention to be real favorites. So that feels about right. Top Chevy looks right. Larson versus Elliott's, as the favorites there. And this is a situation where I know I picked Bowman as a surprise winner. I don't really want to attack him there. If I'm going to play him, I just want the plus 3, 3,500 or whatever. I don't want to attack that. Harvick as the favorite Ford makes a lot of sense as well. Blaney and Logano are the next 2 options. So those are priced right as well. And then, maybe Kyle Busch at plus 280, only because he has a small amount of Toyota friends to beat there. But, they're all priced about right. Not a lot of things I want to attack. Not big enough numbers for anyone for me to really love. But Kyle Busch plus 280, since I think there's probably it's him versus Denny Hamlin, unless he has an issue. It's a pretty good number there for someone who's probably more of a 40% chance to win that group.
Perfect. I love it. And that covers the sports book, the betting aspect of this weekend slate. If you guys have any more questions, now's the time to do so. All right, let's move over to the drafting side of things, though. And I know you mentioned a couple names you already wanted to target. And I think that's great of you to do that, because it makes my job easy over here. And I looked at it from firsthand, just using the betting odds, implied percentages, and stuff like that to see what I can build. But we're going to go back to you. I know you talked about a couple guys who you were on this week. How do you see this slate going down? What is your favorite DraftKings target?
So for DraftKings this week, and this is where it kind of changes week to week and track to track, because we have 500 laps, we're really, really attacking those dominator points. So laps led, fast laps, the most vital part of building lineups this week. So, I'm really looking to try to get 3 drivers that are going to add 30, 40, 50 points to their total through leading laps and getting fast laps. So that's the most important part of lineup building. For me, Kyle Busch stands out the most because of his success. I mean, he is by far the best driver at this track. I love his upside. I love the fact that he can dominate the races here. And if Toyota has that elite speed, I think he's out racing Denny Hamlin. I think he's out racing everyone in that group. You look at his track history since 2017, it's a win in 2017, a win in 2018, 20th. I don't know why. Probably something weird happened. A win in 2019, a fourth, and a second, and then 21st last year, which wasn't indicative of where he was running either. So you're literally talking about a guy with 3 wins in his last 8 starts, a couple of runner up, and a couple fourth place finishes. Just elite upside. He's led 100 plus laps and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 12 races. So 50% chance he's leading the 100 laps. Just huge upside. And as a driver who's just great here in any car, I think he can deliver. So I love Kyle Busch.
Awesome. Expensive salary though, so of course we're going to have to go down. We're going to have to get some savers here. What's your favorite value play of the week? And I know we talked about Bowman, and I know we talked about I don't want to mess up the name, Keselowski. So is Keselowski perfect? Is anybody else sticking out to you in terms of a salary saver for you?
So Keselowski definitely stands out, just because of track history. Stenhouse and Almirola, I think, is going to be a popular group. Maybe Buescher as well. That whole range is going to probably be super, super popular. Stenhouse has several top 10s here. I think he has 4 or 5 of them, which for him on any track is pretty impressive. He has really big upside, but he also has a lot of crash potential. Eric Almirola, who I gave out as that surprise top 10 play, is a little bit safer. Usually as a driver, he maybe doesn't have quite the upside, but he can put together a solid race and be there at the end and potentially give you a good points total. And that's why I maybe favor him more in a DraftKings format than betting that top 10 bet, simply because he's a guy that qualifies really, really well. But if he qualifies like 20th or 22nd, he's definitely a guy that can finish 12th, 13th, 9th, whatever. Give us 45 points and help round out a lineup for DFS. But all these guys in that range kind of do the same thing. Keselowski, Stenhouse, Almirola. Stenhouse is more of an upside guy. Almirola is maybe a little bit more of a floor guy. But all these guys are probably going to offer the same type of thing. It's just which one hits, which is probably why this range is a little bit more open for me. Michael McDowell fits that as well. So if I had to play Michael McDowell because that's where the salary, made me go, I feel just as comfortable doing that. I wouldn't feel too overwhelmed having to do that because he's had decent success here. And everyone fits that bill. He finished 10th here in 2020. He was 14th in the other race in 2020. So 14th and the 10th in back-to-back races there. He was 24th last year. But these races can ebb and flow in so many directions based off an accident or anything. So, I look for guys' upsides and what they can possibly do for us in DFS.
Yeah, and even just looking at those guys, that range you talked about, it looks like this is a slate where you can afford to get a lot of these players. Am I wrong there? Oh no, I guess there's a glitch because it says I only have 33 remaining salary. So maybe I'm wrong there. So yeah, definitely a bunch of options you're liking. For me personally, I'm gonna get a bit selfish here. I'll ask you a personal question because I am a GBP player first. What's a guy with a really good upside you're liking that maybe comes at a bit of lower ownership, or someone's gonna be your tournament winner in terms of a DraftKings play?
So Bowman sits in that realm, the one we talked about earlier. But another one that I'm very interested in, kind of in that value range to see what he can do, is going to be Justin Haley. So, we're gonna have to save, and he's all the way down there in like 5,900 range. Yeah, 6K for Justin Haley this week. So Justin Haley's another guy like Almirola who's just super consistent. It's not the greatest consistency in terms of he's finishing 12th every week. But if you look at his race results, it's 19th, it's 19th, it's 17th, it's 18th, it's 19th, it's 21st. It's the same result every single week because he's not overstepping his ability. He's not messing up. He's not getting involved in crashes. He's being smart and safe and consistent and giving himself the opportunity to be there at the end. While a track like Bristol, where a driver's race can be completely screwed up because of a flat tire and he goes 4 laps down, and because there's probably going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 cars that are taken out because of crashes, and we're looking at the possibility of 5 cars in front of him being taken out through other means. It's a 19th place finisher that can finish 14th or 13th in this race and score really well for 6K. So, I'm trying to get through the chaos and the carnage that can happen here. And Justin Haley's a guy that just doesn't wreck cars right now. He doesn't put himself in bad spots, and he's there at the end. So if I can get a guy like that who's there at the end and potentially scores a top 15 or maybe even a sneaky top 10, I like to play.
All right. Last but not least, let's talk about that contrarian play. I know you talked about Bowman In that mid-salary range, someone who's going to get different winning these tournaments, is that the type of guy you're going to, and someone in Alex Bowman, or is there somebody else you're liking in this mid-range as well?
So the good thing about the mid range is there's viable drivers that you don't have to necessarily be contrarian. Like you can straight up build your lineup with Kevin Harvick, right? And Kevin Harvick, I believe, is 8,500. You can go there. You can go Ryan Blaney. You can go William Byron. I mean, Ross Chastain at 9,200 is not super expensive. Kevin Harvick has like a second place finish and a win in his last 2 races here, and you're getting him at 8,500. So you can afford lineups without just attacking the top tier, which is really, really good. But yeah, Bowman's that ownership leverage point because of those drivers. We know Harvick is going to get a ton of attention. We know Blaney and Logano and some of these guys are going to get a lot of attention. Whereas Bowman's probably not. People just don't love him for good reason. He's hit or miss. But if he hits, you're going to see a guy that's, I don't know, 14% owned or 13% owned compared to these guys that are 25 and 30% owned. And it's a great leverage spot. And at 8,200, you just need him to round out your lineup. You don't necessarily need him to lead a bunch of laps or do anything like that. He's what I call a stud play who I'm looking for 50, 55 points out of, not necessarily to put up 100.
All right. Like that kind of stuff there. But I think that covers a lot of the slate here from both a betting and DFS perspective. If you got any last points you want to add from either side, now would be the time to do so, Ryan, before I let you go.
I don't. I think the biggest thing I will say, I know last week was wonderful and it's great.
Oh.
It's not something we can replicate. This race is going. I'm projecting it to be even more chaotic than Bristol, simply because I think this new car will be slightly harder to handle. So when you're playing DFS, spread out your ownership more. Don't get bogged down on a handful of guys. I'm betting. You're not taking shots on long odds necessarily for top, for winning the race, because at the end of the day, there's going to be one elite driver left over and they're going to win. But we could see 5 top 10, top 12 cars have issues, which is very common here. So that 17th place driver, Eric Almirola, who I gave out as a top 10 play, those are the guys that can sneak into the top 10, the back end of the top 10, and win you really good money at plus numbers. So look at those guys. Eric Jones was mentioned earlier. In that question, that's a great look as well as maybe someone who's going to run 12th to 15th, but when those front runners issues, all of a sudden he's 7th, 8th, or 9th, and he's catching you a plus 180 number. So be more prepared for kind of chaos. Whereas last week, to me, was more straightforward. The Toyotas were going to be the fastest. We have these couple of guys that are obvious that we can hone in on, and then one guy was just screaming value at his numbers. This week is not as obvious, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
All right. Well, I hope none of those things go wrong. Let's try to ride the hot hand. Thank you once again for dropping all this knowledge on the channel. The Plays and Fades sports community definitely appreciates you. And thank you to everybody who's tuning in and hopefully make some cash with us as well. So again, off that plus 2,000 win last week, I know you're on a high. Let the people know where they can find you. And keep in mind, I did drop the website and your Twitter in the bio down below.
Awesome. So yeah, at Larkin on Twitter. I don't really know if I post anything good there, but check it out. I'm almost 1,800. I'd love to get to like 18,000, but we'll see how it goes. We've had really good growth across the board in everything we've done. So I'm really happy with it. For all my content, dailyfanracing.com. That's going to be NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, Truck Series. We got truck race later this evening. I'm going to have full slate breakdown. Trucks has probably been our best bet this year. We've had the most success on it and stuff. So I'm excited for trucks, but man, Bristol's such a tough week. So it's hard to say, but yeah, all content's there. F1, when they come back in a couple of weeks, I'll have F1 content there as well. We got this video on there. I got a Twitter Spaces on Wednesday. I'm doing a lot of things. So you can catch me in a lot of places, but really follow me on Twitter at like Larkin8, and you'll get a tweet out about what I'm dropping and be ready for everything through there.
All right. One last thing, because I'm really getting greedy from you this week. Last week you dropped Julian Erosa. Give me some UFC to make my what's your dog shot for UFC this week?
Well, hold on. Okay, yeah, Julian Erosa was the perfect play. I had a feeling that was going to happen. He's just been on a roll. But your 10-unit bet, what is this 10-unit bet you tweeted out about? And don't tell me it's Tanner Bozer just because he's Canadian.
No, and the funny part about the Canadian thing is I had Mike from Couch Warrior Pod on last night, and he picked against every Canadian, and it's just wild. Anyways, for me, it is not so much a 10-unit bet in the way that people want it to be. For me, I capped a fighter at 95% to win. And although he is already chalked, I already have 10 units on the guy spread across different parlays that I've already hit. It's Joe Pfeiffer. I think
Yeah,
Joe Pfeiffer is the easiest pick this week. I have 4 units on him now straight at minus 180 and minus 125. So everything I have on him now is to win. It's 10 units to win 6.7 or something like that. The way I parlayed it up, it's all good. I just think that it's a clear matchup for him, and everybody else is cluing on. It's really hard for me to go out there, and it's unfortunate that the one guy I am so confident in is as juiced as he is. It's always funner to drop a max bet on a guy who's minus 150 plus money or something like that. But
yeah.
I truly do think that he should be minus 1,000, minus 1,500 here. He is definitely an obvious pick, so I'm not really being all controversial. I'm not really being, you know what, in a league of my own. I just am really putting my foot down. This is a spot that I've been targeting for 3 weeks. I got him at minus 350. I got him at early numbers. I think he rolls.
Cool. All right. So I'll give a couple of plays I'm interested in. And I'm going to look for underdogs here, even if they're not super, super big dogs. Bill Algeo, I'm very interested in here. I feel like Andre Philly's the type of guy that makes bad mental mistakes, and against a guy that's just going to keep pressing and pushing forward, I think Algeo can take that win. Sarah McMahon, if she doesn't quit and doesn't make I think she'll look great in the first round. It's just, can she stay in it? I feel like that's a fighter that can win 2 rounds here. Not super, super excited about that. But if I'm looking for a big dog, and I'm going to probably mess up his name here, but Louis Koske is someone that I'm very interested in at 7,100 on DraftKings, at least. Maybe not to straight bet it, but, Trevin Giles is someone I'm not a big fan of at all. I think he's one of the worst fighters overall in the UFC, and he's kind of been bailed out in some spots. He's coming off 2 KO losses back-to-back. He's also got 2 sub losses on his record. And while some of this is to higher caliber, competition and Mershard and Duplessis, who's, got raw power, through his veins. Morales, these are big, heavy hitters. This, Trevin Giles is not a guy that I'm super high on. He got that win against James Krause. He didn't deserve it. He's just kind of a mediocre fighter to me. And he's a guy that you can make quit if you can land a big shot or if you can put some pressure on him. So I'm hoping that, Koski can get in there, land a big shot, put a little pressure on him. If he's timid, he will not. He will, kind of get outpointed by Giles, in my opinion. But if he can put some pressure on him and make Giles panic a little bit, I think he can take that fight.
All right. Few things. Number one, I agree. I think Kosi has great value, 7.1. However, what I will say is where I agree that guys have room for improvement. I think it's unfair to him that his raw skill is one of the worst in the UFC. I think he actually has decent raw skill. For him, it's the mental block and it's the mental errors he makes. And I think that really what defines him.
That's fair.
I think skill for skill, he's got decent abilities. And I think that's an interesting fight. I just think you can't really compare Kosi to Morales, like Duplessis, all that stuff.
You can't. No, you for sure can't. But I don't know, man. I like Trevin Giles, and maybe this is just because he's burned me too much, but I watch him fight and I'm like, that dude just has, and it is mental. I just watch him fight and I'm like, man, if anyone just rattles him at all, you can win that fight.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to get your opinion on that. I know I love talking UFC with you as well. So I'm glad we can go in there, give the people a little bit of banter at the end there as well. If anybody wants to know anything more about my full card DraftKings picks video, we just posted like 20 minutes ago. So it is up. It is ready to go. I actually talked a lot this week. Usually my videos are 9-10 minutes. This one I think is like 16, 17. I think because we had that extra fights in there, 14 fights. I think that this is one of the most volatile cards I've ever seen. It's one of my favorite DraftKings for UFC slates I've ever seen in my life, because not only do you have a ton of matchups where you can target both sides, target the dogs, but you have those favorites up top who I see winning 90% of the time, in the Pfeiffer, Zell Hubers, et cetera, et cetera. So great slate. Had to get your input in it real quick. But all right, back to where we were at NASCAR. Hope you guys enjoyed. the breakdown that Ryan gave you, not only from a DFS side of things, but a betting side of things as well. I know I'm about to lock all that stuff in, hopefully make some cheddar the same way you helped me make last week. So once again, I owe you a drink. Thank you very much for coming on the show and dropping some knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on again. Hopefully we can have another good weekend, and it just keeps people wanting to have the show as part of their weekly what's the word?
Routine.
Routine. Thank you. I knew there was a word out there for it. Anyways, thanks guys. Thanks for checking it out. If you want some money, awesome. Hopefully we can keep doing it for you.
Perfect. Well, at that, guys, this is the time. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button down below. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, especially you, B-Man, for asking all those questions as well. Now, all I say is enjoy the races this weekend. Hopefully, you guys make some money. Peace, guys.